Good evening, everyone, and welcome to This Week from Rockdale. And as usual, I am your host, Larry Cox, and it is great to be here live this evening from Rockdale County here on This Week from Rockdale. We are approaching the eve of election here on Tuesday. It is the Sunday, and I'm telling you guys, it is getting exciting out here in the community. I know, we're uh, all of us candidates are on pins and needles waiting to get this thing done and in the books. So tonight we've got a special guest. We have got Judge Clarence Cuthpert will be joining me here in a second. First, let me say hi to a couple of people who've joined us, Mary Boysworth and Justin Kinney. Welcome to the show tonight. And then after this show, at 9 o'clock, we're going to have a special Board of Education roundtable with myself and Justin Kinney and Tanae Davis. And we're going to recap the campaign trail for you, talk about some things we'd like to do, and just let you guys have one last chance to hear Board of Education candidates before Tuesday evening also. But let me go ahead and bring on Judge Clarence Cuthbert now, and he can tell you a little bit about himself. Hey, Judge, how you doing today?
Good evening, Larry. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing good, Judge. I'm just here, this last few days of campaigning, winding things down, just like yourself, trying to get the last little bit of campaigning in and talking to people. And why not, have one last show with you here before the big day? And I think there were a couple of things you told me you wanted to make sure to emphasize for the folks to be able to hear about. And I thought I'd, give you that opportunity. So why don't you go ahead and just do a quick little intro of yourself and let people know who you are and what you're about.
All right. Thank you, Larry. And thank you for having me here this evening on This Week from Rockdale. I am Clarence Cuthpert Jr., and I'm a candidate for Superior Court Judge here in Rockdale County. Uh, I am running for this position to continue serving this community with integrity, fairness, and deep commitment to justice. And based upon these unique qualities, the citizens of Rockdale County elected me on three different occasions. In 2021, I was appointed by Governor Brian Kemp to serve as state court judge here in Rockdale County. And in 2022, I was on the ballot, and the citizens of Rockdale County elected me to a full term as state court judge. In 2016, I was elected as probate judge, and in 2020, I was reelected in probate judge. And prior to my judicial career, I practiced law throughout the state of Georgia for 20 years in the federal, state, and local courts. And I owned my own law firm, Cuthpert and Associates, for 17 of those 20 years. Prior to prior to serving as a judge and practicing law, I served in law enforcement in various capacities for approximately 10 years. And so that's who Clarence Cuthbert is. That is what my experience is. And that is what qualifies me to serve as the next Superior Court judge here in Rockdale County.
Judge. You have served many different capacities. You've been a police officer, a lawyer, a probate judge, state court judge. I mean, so you've seen a large. As much as one can see in law enforcement and judicial, you've served that whole gauntlet. One might say.
That is correct. And so I understand the process. I like to say from the arrest all the way through the jury trial and up to the conviction, if such, on the criminal side. One thing that I would like to address here this evening is that the Superior Court the Superior Court has exclusive jurisdiction over the most heinous felony offenses. And those offenses are murder, rape, kidnapping, armed robbery, aggravated sexual battery, aggravated child molestation, aggravated sodomy, aggravated assault against a public safety officer with a firearm, and aggravated battery against a public safety officer. Again, Superior Court has exclusive jurisdiction over these offenses. Any person who's 13 years of age or older and commits one of these offenses, according to the law, they're charged as an adult, and their case is under the jurisdiction of the Superior Court. Now, these offenses that I just outlined are not the same as the offenses that are addressed in juvenile court. Those offenses are called designated felony offenses, and they're specific to minor offenders. They're specific to minor offenders. They're not considered to be a for the offenders to have a criminal record. They're considered delinquent, and their records are sealed. If you think about how many times that you've heard on the news or in one of our news outlets about a minor offender who committed one of these violent offenses that I outlined earlier, and they were being tried as an adult. We hear it all the time. But how many times have you heard about a minor offender who committed murder, rape, armed robbery, aggravated assault, one of those serious offenses, being charged as a juvenile? It simply does not happen. It's a rare occasion that it happens. There are a couple of exceptions to that rule, but clearly it is an exception, and it's not the rule. The more serious offenses, regardless of the age of the offender, if that offender is at least 13 years of age, falls under the jurisdiction of the Superior Court.
So now, when when you're elected to this position, you become there's already one other Superior Court judge, right?
That is correct.
So how does that ranking go?
Well, the judge with the more seniority automatically becomes the chief judge, and so the with Judge Mumford retiring, being the chief judge, the chief judgeship would then fall to Judge Nancy Bills, and I would be the associate Superior Court judge.
So, and for a lot of people may not know what then is the difference between the two. What authority does the chief judge and the associate? What's the difference?
The chief judge has the authority to make decisions regarding the running of the courthouse and the policies and procedures of how the Superior Court will be operated and how it will be conducted. And so even though the associate judge would have some input as to new policies and procedures or any amendments to the current policies and procedures, it would have to be approved and signed off on by the chief judge, which would be Judge Bills.
So, but the actuality of running the courtroom itself, that would be the associate judge courtroom, and would not have the chief judge would not have the authority over that associate judge. Would that be correct?
That would be accurate. Yes, our chief judges have never exercised that type of authority over.
So the chief judge just has policy making authority.
That is correct.
So, and I think that's important to know, right? Mm-hmm. That the chief and the associate judge, they're both Superior Court judges, and they both have the same authority within their courtrooms.
That is correct. Yes.
So, I mean, I think there's been a little confusion about that out there on the streets about what that means.
Yes.
Because in your past position you just resigned from, you were the chief state court judge, correct?
That is
so
correct.
It was a similar power dynamic between you and Judge Reed, correct?
Absolutely, very similar. Yes.
So you are very familiar with how that would work, knowing that that the policy and procedures are set by the chief court judge, but then you actually run your courtroom.
That is correct. Absolutely.
I just think it was important for people to know that, because sometimes they think that one judge is the other judge's boss, and that's not true.
That is correct. That is correct. It's not our chief court judges have never exercised that type of authority over the associate judges. They do allow the associate judges the flexibility to operate their courtrooms in the manner that they see fit, as long as it's not contrary to any policy that's in place.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm. And that's good to know. I mean, because a lot of people don't know how the structure works, right?
Absolutely.
And it's really interesting about how the structure works and what what everything does happen.
That
So
is
now let's ask about programs that you guys establish and have. So are the judges allowed to establish programs of that initiate from their courts?
again, it would be up to the chief judge to approve those programs. Uh, we can certainly make suggestions. We can provide data to support the programs that we would like to implement. But that final decision regarding whether or not the programs will be approved would be up to the Superior Court judge, and depending on the type of program it is, it would also have to involve the law enforcement and the prosecution aspect. All of those individuals would have a say in whether or not that program is needed, whether it's necessary, and whether they believe it would be successful here in Rockdale County.
And a lot of times that depend on the availability to secure funding for a program.
Absolutely. And in regards to funding from the county, typically if you apply for a grant, the grantors are going to look for the county to have a certain buy-in as well. And so if that buy-in is not there, then there's a good chance that the grant will not be uh, awarded. Those of us who understand the grant process understand that there's not any individual or organization that apply for grants that from time to time those grants are not denied because of the competitive nature of the grant application process. But again, as I presided over the DUI accountability court and state court, we were awarded several grants. Yes, we did have one denied, but we were awarded several. And again, if you understand the grant process, you understand that it is not typical to have every grant that you apply for awarded to your program.
So and there's competition for those grants. So some people are going to get them, and if if there's X number available, then there's going to be only so many courts that get awarded those grants.
Absolutely. And I'll say too that in presiding over the DUI accountability court, we were chosen as a model court in the state of Georgia for the period of 2021 to 2024, which is exactly the period of time that I presided over that program. And that was due to the fact that we only had a 6% recidivism rate for the program. And so again, with a program with those type of that type of success, to not be awarded a grant, it just lets you know that it's a very competitive process.
So Charlotte's got a question, and CJ had a juvenile question. Let me go to CJ's question first. It was about juveniles. When they are charged as an adult, do they get a jury trial?
Yes, they do. If they're charged as an adult and they're tried in the Superior Court, yes, they do receive a jury trial. They will be subject to a jury trial if they choose to.
And then Charlotte's got an interesting question because I would like to know this too: is do judges get to choose their own bailiffs, or does the sheriff's department choose it, or does the sheriff?
The judges typically have their preference. However, it depends on availability of the officers and whether or not the sheriff, there's enough manpower for the sheriff to actually grant you your request. But I have not known the sheriff to deny a judge
If they've got their favorite.
Exactly.
Gotcha. So it actually be there. Yeah, this guy he takes care of me. He's who I want in that room with me, right?
Correct.
So,
who makes the judge feel safe? Yes.
Yeah, and then Tanya Bloodworth has a good question also about juveniles. Do you agree that juvenile offenders are treated as a civil case, and that is why they do not get a criminal conviction?
The overall conclusion of the case, it is treated as a civil case, which again is why they do not have a record. Their records are sealed. They're not considered to have a conviction, and they are just considered to be delinquent. So the whole focus is on a restorative process as opposed to a criminal conviction process.
This is a good one. What is your average docket on a daily basis?
I'm going to assume we're talking about Superior
Superior
Court.
Court. Yes,
Okay.
Superior Court.
It depends. We wouldn't have dockets every day. It typically would be a docket of either family law cases or civil cases or criminal cases. It depends on what type of docket it is. If it's an arraignment docket, it could be. I mean, in state court, I saw arraignment dockets of over 70, up to about 70 people. It just depends on what type of cases it is, and as judges, we get to determine how many cases we would want to put on a particular docket based on the time that we think it would take to resolve the cases and deal with each issue. An arraignment docket is fairly a docket that goes very quickly, so we can afford to put more cases on an arraignment docket. But if you're talking about a motions hearing docket, then there wouldn't be as many cases because motions can take quite a while. And so when you're dealing with arguing motions for dismissal, motions for to dismiss or to exclude certain evidence or things of that nature, then those that we know that those cases are going to take longer, so we wouldn't have as many cases on a docket of that sort.
Yeah, our audience is full of questions. You see, this is another good one from Ben Garcia. Is it fair to say that the focus of juvenile court is rehabilitating juvenile delinquents, but Superior Court criminal is about holding adults accountable for their action? In other words, punishment.
I would agree with that. I will say that it's also the goal of Superior Court for individuals who do not have an extensive criminal history, and that they may have just, when we look at the facts and the evidence, we can determine that they may have simply had a lapse in judgment, or this was a one-time situation where they acted out of emotion or something of that nature. And it's possible to have them assigned to an accountability court or some sort of first offender program that can help them to overcome this charge and get back on track to their normal behavior. Then certainly we will look at that. But the ultimate goal is to make sure that we hold them accountable for their actions, to ensure that our communities remain safe, so that when where we live, where our families live, we want them to feel safe. We want our families to feel safe when they're going to the grocery store. We want our kids to feel safe when they're going to school. And so we have to look at all of the factors that are involved and determine what is the best way to handle a particular case. And with my experience, again, from the arrest all the way through the trial and the conviction, I have the ability to look at the facts of the case, to look at all of the evidence that surrounds the case, and determine what is in the best interest of this individual and our community.
So Ben had a little bit of a follow up. So he said, so juvenile felonies aren't the same as adult felonies.
No, they're not. The adult felonies are called SB 440 felonies, and the juvenile felonies are called designated felonies.
So there's even a legal definition that is different between the two felonies.
That is correct. And if you think about it, why would the legislators go to the trouble of singling out each category or addressing it in different areas of the law if they were all the same? It points to the fact that juveniles are treated differently than adults.
I'll tell you, this audience tonight, Judge, they got some stuff. So, so we're going to get into the courthouse now a little bit.
Okay.
So Alex wants to know, then this is going to segue into some other courthouse questions. Alex wants to know, are you satisfied with your current courtroom? So let's just talk about it. So you had a courtroom as the state court judge, and then you know what courtroom you would get as the Superior Court judge, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess address both courtrooms.
Well, you're asking about the current courtroom versus the.
We're asking. He's asking right now. Are you satisfied with the current courtroom? Then we're going to get into future.
All right. The current courtroom has issues, and my primary issue with the current courtroom is safety. And security. My current issue with the entire courthouse is safety and security because as judges, we are using the same elevators as the general public. We are parking in the same areas as the general public. I have actually shared elevators with defendants that were coming to my court, and I have actually shared stairways with individuals that were coming to my court. So my number one concern with the courthouse is the safety and security of not only the judges but of the staff as well.
So you answered half of Charlotte Gellert's question, I believe, there. So she wanted to know, is the current courthouse security fully staffed? Is it sufficient? I think you answered the sufficient part, and the answer is no.
Yeah,
And so is it staffed sufficiently?
I will say that as of March 1st, when I was required to resign by law in order to run for this particular position, it was not fully staffed.
And then she wants, are you so were you aware of the futuristic plans of the new court, the renovated courthouse and whatever they were going to add on? What do you think that would have done to the facility? Would it made it more user friendly, and would the upgrades, were they going to be satisfactory?
I do believe they would be. They do address the parking issues. They also address the entrance and exit issues for the judges as well as the staff. And we basically we would have a private entrance separate from the general public, and as well as private elevators and stairwells if necessary. So I do believe they would address the majority of the security issues, if not all.
Okay, I mean, and that was the real issue of why, back in the beginning when we started, do we need this, whatever. I think everybody was on board. We needed to do something because even when you went and took a tour of the facility, you realized that there were serious issues,
That
right?
is
So I mean,
correct.
so what you're saying is nothing surprising to anybody who's taken a tour
Mhm.
and been able to walk those halls and see how everything is done now. We totally realize there are security and safety issues with the way it currently is housed and established.
Mhm.
Um, so what's he see? I think somebody else said, "Oh, this is an inter. What's the biggest case or most popular case that you have dealt with?"
On the and I'm going to try to throw one of each out. On the criminal side, I would say it was a couple of I had a couple of vehicular homicide cases where vehicular homicide, but most people would think it is a felony. It's actually a misdemeanor because it does not involve intent. It's where someone is killed as a result of an automobile accident that did not involve intent on the part of the driver. It was more based on negligence. So I've had a couple of those. I've also had one where a young lady had access to her friend's Facebook account, I believe it was one of the online accounts, and she actually logged in, took some private videos from her friend's account because they were no longer friends at this point, and she distributed it out among the public, and that she was actually found guilty by a jury and spent some time in jail. On the civil side, the biggest case would have been a medical malpractice case that resulted in the death of an individual. We had a jury trial that lasted about 3 days, I believe it was, and both of the attorneys actually did a article in the Daily Report uh, commending me on how I conducted that trial. It was right after COVID when trials were just starting up again. And even the losing attorney felt that I gave them a fair opportunity to present their case and that I presided well over the case. So those would be the ones that would come to mind right away.
Gotcha. Well, and Charlotte's got a follow up about the existing courthouse. Are there still ADA issues in the current courthouse?
I would say there are. My understanding that the ADA had found several violations there some years ago, but they were giving the county an opportunity to work some of these things out based on the assurance that we were going to get a new courthouse in the near future. We did correct some, but I'm not sure that they've all been corrected.
Gotcha. Alex has an interesting question. He said, no reason. He just wants to know. It's like, are you, okay, as you were required to resign, have you been practicing law in your downtime? Also, when you become a judge again, will you be allowed to practice law? He just, wants to know how the process is and just sort of what the rules are or how you guys actually do that.
Well, to answer the first part, no, I haven't been practicing law since I resigned. I stepped out on faith, and I'm out here totally on faith. But I wanted to get this election out of the way before I obligated myself to anything else, especially to clients, because I like to ensure that I have the time and commitment to give to a client when I am retained by them. And in regards to whether or not I'll be able to practice law as a judge, the answer is no. Full-time judges are not allowed to practice law. If you're a part-time judge, you can, but a full-time judge is not allowed to practice law.
And that's where we'll have the associate judges that are like when you had an associate at probate and associates in the magistrate court and such. They are able to practice law because they're just fill in or part time. But
That
whereas the state court and superior court are full time day to day judges. So the answer would be no.
that is correct. And also, just to remind you, I am also a registered mediator and arbitrator, and I can mediate and arbitrate cases as a part-time judge, but I could not use those skills as a full-time judge.
Gotcha. So this is an interesting. What volunteer or civic activities do you participate in? Because people like to know what you do in the community.
Well, I am a strong believer that judges' duties and responsibilities do not stop with simply being on the bench and serving as judge. And so, as a part of the community, I am a part of the Rotary Club of Conyers, the Rotary Club of Rockdale, I'm sorry, the Kiwanis Club of Conyers. I'm a board member with Habitat for Humanity. I'm a former board member with the A.R. Gus Barksdale Boys and Girls Club. I'm a former board member with the United Way here in Rockdale. I am a civil life member of the NAACP. I started Veterans Town Hall meetings here in Rockdale County to connect our veterans with service providers after holding a few meetings with our veterans, and we have about 6,500 of them here in Rockdale. I found that their number one complaint was that they were having difficulty obtaining the benefits that they are entitled to. They were getting caught up in a lot of red tape. A lot of them were not technology savvy, so they could not accomplish what they needed to online. So I was successful in connecting them with the Georgia Department of Veteran Services. We actually brought the commissioner of the Georgia Department of Veteran Services to Rockdale to meet with them. I also brought the benefits director from the Veterans Administration here to Rockdale to meet with our veterans. And I was in the process of trying to connect with one of our senators to bring them here to Rockdale to talk with our veterans about pending legislation that would benefit them as well. And so I have a passion for veterans. I will continue to work with veterans, and that is one of the things that I do as well. In 2022, my mother passed away. And in 2023, I started a scholarship called the Mary Lee Bellinger Cuthpert Pinckney Memorial Scholarship for students here in Rockdale and in my hometown of Savannah, Georgia. And in 23, we were able to give 3 awards to students from the scholarship, and all 3 happened to be Rockdale County students and Heritage High School students. I'm also a 33rd degree Mason, which is another social service organization that I'm a part of. And I started the Pearl program, which is called the Protecting Our Elderly and At Risk with Resources for Better Living. And the mission of that program is to eradicate elder abuse here in Rockdale County, as well as abuse of incapacitated adults between the ages of 18 and 64. While many may not recognize it or realize it, we had a serious issue of elder abuse here in Rockdale County. And over a 4-year period, we had over 600 cases reported. Now, Pearl works with Adult Protective Services and the other state agencies and law enforcement agencies to ensure that our elders receive the services that they deserve. But by having an agency here in Rockdale County, we can ensure that our residents receive the attention that they should. And we have been successful in prosecuting those who abuse or neglect our elderly. We've also been successful in recovering funds that have been misappropriated by those who were in supervisory authority position over our elderly. So that's just to name a few. I'm sure there's some I probably forgot, but
Sandra said that you forgot something. RER.
Yes, I did make an award to RER. I also made an award to Hills Academy, and I've also made an award to, and she would kill me if she know that I'm forgetting the name right now, but it's the organization that Darlene Hartskis works with out of Restoration Storehouse.
Phoenix Pass?
Not Phoenix Pass. It's it'll come to me in a minute. But I did make an award to Phoenix Pass as well. So,
yeah. And Charlotte had an interesting question. Is the Pearl program self-sustaining?
It is. We initially operated out of grants in 2000. I founded in 2017, and in 2019 we received a $375,000 grant from the U.S. Department of Justice. We were able to hire a full-time coordinator. We have a full-time 1-800 number where you can report your suspicions of abuse anonymously. You don't have to give us any information other than that of the individual that you think is being abused and how we could contact that individual and start our investigation. And so we were operating out of the grant, and actually the county picked up the program this past year. So that was an introductory grant that was good for 3 years. They extended us a little bit because of COVID hindering us from doing a lot of what we wanted to do. But it is now funded under the county and under the state court budget.
So, is it Mercy Hart?
It is Mercy Hart, absolutely.
Sandra Jackson Lett. Wealth of knowledge, Sandra, is, you know. Yeah. Okay, so Kelly Farr says, you are my mother's neighbor and she thinks highly of you. Please help the elderly in Rockdale.
I have a passion for the elderly and for our youth, and I have no intention of reducing or letting up, reducing my role or letting up on my obligation to serve those groups.
I think, I've really, haven't you enjoyed the interaction that our audience has had tonight?
Absolutely.
Just that's been great questions, great interaction. And it's helped. I think they've helped draw out a lot more about this position and the things you do that really would not have come out if these folks hadn't have, asked the questions.
Absolutely. And I'm grateful for the questions. I welcome them.
And Sandra, we know you love the community, and that's why we know you are a wealth of knowledge and you are looking out for all of us. So, So that's it. And Sandra, I'm just telling you what, I'm looking forward to become a partner of yours on the school board starting next year. So, that's my little thing that I'm, can't wait to do. I can't wait to become a partner on the school board with Sandra Jackson Lett.
Absolutely.
So, Judge, I think it's just fantastic. Oh, Cheryl did ask. She wanted to know about the judicial administrative complex. Do you think it's overpriced, and are there ways that we possibly could reduce the cost of the complex?
Well, I'll just say this. I've kind of stayed out of that conversation. I don't really know, and I have no background in construction or the cost of construction or anything like that. I simply know that there are certain needs that we must address, and then the other issues in regards to that. I know that there was some other judges and county officials that were on the committee that were a part of making these decisions, but I couldn't say one way or the other about the actual cost of it.
Gotcha. So I think we're gonna end with this last question, and everybody, I know that we hate to end it, but I got another show I got to get ready for at 9 o'clock. So but this has been a great interview. I think it's been an informative interview, and I think you guys have got to really get to know Clarence a little deeper through this interview process. So and this is a very important question. I think you'll be able to answer this, and I think the sheriff had mentioned something that he's doing you're probably familiar with. But CJ asked, what are your thoughts on the mentally ill in the jails? And do we need a place for them, just for them?
I believe we do. As I stated earlier, I worked in law enforcement for several years, and my first job was in the jail as a corrections officer for over 2 years. I've seen firsthand how the mentally ill or those with mental incapacities interact when they're housed with the other individuals. A lot of times they're taken advantage of. A lot of times something that the general population that they're housed with may do could certainly spark an outburst or send the mentally ill individuals into a crisis. And so I do believe that they should be housed separately. I also believe that our law enforcement officers, both on the street and in the jails, should be specially trained to know how to deal with these individuals to keep those reactions and those outbursts under control. Many times when you approach a mentally ill individual in a certain manner, they automatically become defensive.
It triggers them, right, Judge?
Absolutely. And one of the things that I lobbied for with the sheriff's office, and he was very accommodating with, even from in regards to the Pearl program, was to have the officers trained in the CIT training, crisis intervention training. And they were very accommodating with getting those officers trained so that when they respond to a call, they understand the what they should be looking for to determine if this person is just a violent individual or if they're going through a mental crisis. And so I believe that goes a long way in keeping our officers safe, as well as keeping the individuals that there are there in regards to the call, that they're there for, keeping them safe as well. And so to answer the question, I do believe that a separate housing for the mentally ill is essential.
And I believe from one of the forums we attended that Sheriff Levitt said that as we speak, there is a renovation going on at the jail now to provide that type of area in the jail for the mentally ill.
That's correct. And I also believe that they have hired mental health professionals that now respond with the officers to certain calls to de-escalate. Yes.
Yeah, because they're trained in de-escalation skills when we get on these situations. Well, Judge, let's wrap this thing up by doing this. Let's let you close it out. Tell people why you're running, and again that reason that you're the person they should be voting for on Tuesday.
All right. I am the candidate for Superior Court Judge who possess experience in all of the areas under the jurisdiction and authority of Superior Court, as well as the character and competence to serve as your next Superior Court Judge of Rockdale County. As I stated earlier, the duties and responsibilities of the state court judge as opposed to those of the Superior Court Judge are essentially the same, including jury trials and other duties. The rules of evidence are the same. The rules of criminal procedure are the same. Rules of civil procedure are the same. The jury trials are exactly the same. The only real difference in regards to criminal cases is that in state court, the maximum penalty that we would an offender would receive would be 1 year in jail and a $1,000 fine. Whereas in Superior Court, the maximum sentence would be in excess of 1 year, and it could be as much as life and even a death sentence. But death sentences are determined by juries, not the judge. If the prosecutor asks for the death penalty at the end of a jury trial, if an individual is found guilty, there's a second jury trial to determine if that individual should be put to death. So that's not a decision that the Superior Court judge makes. However, having the experience and understanding the elements necessary to even arrest an individual, also understanding the elements necessary to prosecute an individual and the burden of proof associated with that, as well as understanding how to conduct a jury trial, makes me a uniquely qualified candidate to serve as your next Superior Court judge. You trusted me with your vote on 3 different occasions, and Governor Kemp trusted me in 2021 when he appointed me as a state court judge. So I'm here this evening asking you, the citizens of Rockdale County, to trust me again, to show the same level of confidence in me that you have before, based upon my 38 years of experience in the law. That's 10 years in law enforcement, 20 years as a practicing attorney, and 8 years as a judge. I'm asking you to trust that 38 years of experience and elect me as your next Superior Court judge. While I understand the importance of accountability courts and other programs of that sort, I also understand the importance of keeping our community safe. And because I understand the aspects of both and the full gamut of the legal parameters from arrest to the sentencing, it makes my experience essential to ensuring that our community remains a safe place to live and to work. And I am the candidate that embraces all of this experience. I'm asking you to please vote on May 21st. And with your prayers, your support, and your vote, I will be your next Superior Court judge. Thank you again, Larry, for having me on. And thank you all in the audience for your questions. And I look forward to seeing you all at the polls on Tuesday.
Thank you, Judge. And I think this was a great interview. And I think that I want to thank the audience, because I think they really stepped up tonight and made this a very interesting and informative interview tonight. So thank you, audience. And let me ask the audience, please join us back again here at 9 o'clock for a special education roundtable with myself, Justin Kinney, and Tanae Davis, as we give you one last opportunity to ask us questions about education and what we intend to do to help enhance and improve the education here in Rockdale County. So Judge, thank you very much. And guys, I'll see y'all in about 15 minutes. Judge, if you just want to stay here and I stream off, and we'll